whole strategy of Solutions House is answers only. Answers only. Not because the problems are not important. They are desperately, powerfully important. They're the reason why I've been doing what I've been doing for almost 3 decades of my life. But particularly when we think about climate change, it's now communicating itself. With wildfires, with floods, with the problems that we see around the world, climate change is telling its own story. And it's the solutions, the answers that need our help, that actually need us to make them as big, as powerful, as noticeable, as exciting as the challenges that we've all been talking about. And there is a solution that I will admit, being someone who's about to turn 50, perhaps wasn't as high on my agenda as it should have been for the last couple of years, and that is social media and social media creators. You're going to hear us say social media creators throughout this panel, because whilst the media and perhaps some others referred to social media creators as influencers, that's not who they are. Like someone yesterday said, no, you're the influencers, the scientists. You need to be the influencers. We're the creators. We're the creators of storytelling, and we're the creators of messaging. So a few of us might forget that language when we're up here on the panel, under the lights in your gaze, but we're going to be referring to social media creators. And I don't think that game changers come along very often in sustainability. They really don't. Occasionally a piece of technology, maybe a policy happens, but social media creators are a game changer. When I started out in working in this field, there basically was the BBC. And in terms of information provision, actually when I started out, there was 3 TV channels, but we won't go back to that. There was sort of very, very controlled top-down communications channels where there was almost sort of patriarchal control of information, and there was advertising, and David Olga was saying the consumer isn't stupid, she's your wife, whereas now the consumer isn't stupid, she's your boss. And it's like that was very, very controlled. Now we live in a world where information, where access, where influence, where creativity is spread around. Anyone who's got the passion, the gumption, and the sort of charisma to tell their story. This is a game changer. Because once you start following creators, and I now follow a lot of them, including some wonderful ones who are here today, once you start following creators, you don't interact with a creator in the same way that you do to a celebrity or to the news media. Creators are our friends. We are part of their family. We are part of their friendship group. We follow every day the ups and downs of their lives in a way that's more real and more authentic than any other form of media. That gives creators a way to engage with their followers, with their family, with their communities on some of these incredibly important issues in a way unparalleled in the whole history of climate change. So, I know that lots of creators are interested in that. I know that we've got some amazing creators here today and in the audience who are interested in that. But it's not simply the case of saying, hey, creators, could you say climate change more? Could you just kind of talk about the science more on your channels? That's not what's going to work. And so today I'm so excited that Unilever, who many of us will know have got an excellent reputation for their work on sustainability, of course, realised this before any of us. They had this breakthrough that actually creators were a game changer in terms of sustainability, and they've done a great deal of work and thought about this. So I'm going to ask a couple of fantastic Unilever colleagues to come up here and join me, because they're going to spark this conversation today off with some new insights. Then we're going to talk with creators around what that means. And then we're going to talk with all of you about how we can partner with, support and enable creators to be the incredible solutionists that I know that they are. So I would like to invite Rebecca Marmot, the Chief Sustainability Officer of Unilever, and it's a pleasure to have you here in Solutions House. Rebecca, come down and join me. And also Şükrü Dinçer, the Global Head of Digital of Sustainable Choices of Unilever. Please come up and join me. Please take care. And at any moment, tag the Solutions House dog may come up and join us on here as well. She's become very, very comfortable with interrupting sessions. She's extraordinarily cute, and also our online audience loves her. So feel free to pick her up because they like to see her. In fact, actually, we sometimes don't get questions. We get upper caps, show us Dagada comments online. First of all, thank you so very much for inviting us here. Thank you so very much for holding this event here at Solutions House. We're going to have this conversation on the role of creators in decarbonising lifestyles. So first of all, Rebecca, what is it that sparked this for Unilever? Why did you want to start this massive piece of work that you've been undertaking with creators?
So, afternoon everyone. Hello. I ran up the stairs because there was a queue at the lift, so apologies. Hello, Ruth. So we've been on this journey for a long time at Unilever on how to decarbonise across our value chain, and we've done tons of work really trying to understand where does our footprint lie, where do we really need to pull the levers in order to be able to make a difference. And I think we've tried to orient our whole strategy around reaching ultimately a net zero by 2039 target, and then an interim target of 2030. But a lot of the work that we've done, I think, has been quite technical in nature. We have what we call an onion strategy at Unilever when it comes to sustainability. So get your own house in order, work across your value chain, work through your brands, and then work across that wider ecosystem. So I think we've made some decent progress in trying to understand what we need to do. We've looked, I think, across our value chain to really understand where our footprint lies, so sort of tick those first two layers of the box. Then you come to the third layer, which is around our brand, and we've tried very hard through innovation, through R&D, through changing formulations, again, to make progress. But where we've really stumbled has been on how do we tell that story in a consumer-friendly way, and how do we work with consumers in order to help them to make those decarbonisation changes. And we know when we look across all of the research that we read, most people want to make the right choices, but it's incredibly confusing. There are so many different words and terminologies out there. And I don't think that we've necessarily really understood the best way to connect and to work with consumers in order to achieve that. So we get to that fourth stage, that ecosystem. Most of the time I've spent here this week has been in the UN, sort of talking in business circles. And actually, this is really about taking that into, dare I say it, the real world, and really trying to better understand how to work with incredible content influencers and creators. We did a piece of work back in March, and it said that 78% of our consumer base, and we serve a third of the people around the world every day, look to those creators to really give them ideas. They really do have a very huge influence on the kind of choices that people make around products or around the services that they engage with. So it's a hugely, hugely important stakeholder audience for us, because we know that they are massively influential in helping us to engage with consumers.
So I remember I took a look at this study, and that one statistic around how influential creators are on lifestyles really struck me. But there was more in that study. Could you just remind us of a couple of the other points in there?
Yeah, so Şükrü's going to go and steal your thunder. Şükrü's going to go into the detail on that. But again, it was really looking at where do people get their ideas from? You know, who are those key content creators? Who is really shaping and influencing opinions? And it's probably not governments. I think NGOs obviously have a huge influence on people's behaviour, but particularly the younger generation. And we know that they are absolutely the target demographic who they don't want to talk about action, they want to take action. You know, they are looking to content generators, and they are hugely trusted when it comes to both purchasing decisions and the opinions that they're forming around brands. But that was the initial part of the study in March. I know Şükrü is going to talk about some of the detail that's come out just now in September.
So yes, and in fact, actually, I think we might have a few slides. Would you mind just passing over this, and we'll see if it works. If it doesn't, just give Mapem a nod, and she'll let you know what's what. So Şükrü, there's been some new insight that you've launched just this week. Take us through it.
Well, first of all, hi everyone, good afternoon. Like Rebecca introduced the topic, we have been on this journey for a long time, and as you know, Unilever's corporate mission is about making sustainable living commonplace, and I believe you will join me in recognizing that a mission like this cannot be achieved alone for any company. That's why the idea of collaborating and having coalitions in this space is very central to the mission itself. And the journey we started in exploring the sustainable living and how to make it commonplace is, of course, has a lot of societal dimensions into that one. And the blurring world in which we are living, where everything is actually changing roles over time, like, for example, shopping platforms becoming equity builders becoming social commerce platforms. Likewise, social media, which started long years ago as an entertaining place, now is also becoming the source of information for many things that we learn. And the first leg of the research, like Rebecca mentioned, almost 80% of the people come back with a feedback to us saying that they are learning or referring to sustainable living behaviors from the social feeds that they are following. And we actually, let's see if the technology helps.
Here we go.
Maybe it doesn't.
I think the thing is that there's too many warm bodies between the pointer and the computer. There we go.
So we in fact, as a second leg to this research, we explored the same phenomena from the eyes of the creators this time, almost like the second side of the same coin. And we received a similar feedback. Almost 80% of the social media influencers, they would like to create more sustainability-focused content, but fact of the matter is they are held back for a number of reasons from doing so. In fact, another important fact point that we realized in the research, they would like to accept more sustainability-oriented briefs. So they are very much open to act into that space. And following to that one, hopefully, and they also have great engagement every time when they actually go into a sustainability content creation. So this is actually quite a rare and good opportunity in that sense. And the fact of the matter I was trying to refer, but they are held back for some reasons doing this from more often. Like, for example, be it the knowledge gap or be it the fear of greenwashing. 38% of the creators have provided the feedback they are really concerned about being labeled for greenwashing or being cancelled even as a result of that. And this brings us to the opportunity how we can actually create a solution that we can co-create, in fact, with a coalition of creators that we call the Creator Council. Hopefully that will be coming to a body and soul hopefully soon, and provide direct access to their questions, help them with the content and the knowledge gap, and ultimately actually with some training that is making actually them more confident and more comfortable in acting the space more frequently and more impactfully.
So looking at that, over 90% saying, 90% of the creators that were surveyed say they want access to content and resources, they want direct support, they want someone to call, someone to ask when they get asked a question. Actually, I want that as well. I want a scientist at the end of the phone when I get asked questions. And they want access to training around making trustworthy statements. Now, I find this really encouraging, because this is actually what you want communicators to want. You want communicators to want really great quality content, to be able to check that content to avoid greenwashing. So it's really encouraging.
And so the one thing I would like to add, the research is actually across 4 important markets, US, UK, Brazil and Philippines, because sustainable living or sustainability is a broad-based issue in itself. It's not only for Europe or for North America. That's why in the research we try to have a representative sample from North America, Latin America, Asia and Southeast Asia as well. So, and the findings or the feedback loop that we received is pretty much consistent whether you go north, east, west, south. The facts and the reality is the same.
And did I catch earlier that they want these briefs? So, but not everybody might know how the creator community works, and in a moment we're going to have a proper conversation about that. But just obviously creators are dependent in many cases on the briefs that they get, on the partnerships that they establish, sometimes with brands, sometimes with others. And so the fact that creators are eager to be receiving these briefs from brands, do you get a sense that they feel that they're getting enough of those briefs?
Well, I think it's probably a bit of both. I think brands are also willing to do more into the space. Creators are also willing the same. So, and this begs the, let's say, opportunity, or offers the opportunity that there should be something done about this.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, I mean, it looks like a demand side of the equation is there, supply side of the equation is there. We just need to make the interaction happen in a systemic way, rather than leaving it to ad hoc or goodwill of some people or some brands.
Brilliant. So just yesterday here on this stage, we had a conversation about sustainable lifestyles where we brought in the fact that the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, has last year called upon all of us people to take personal action, and that they listed out the behaviours that would make a really big difference. And I can tell you, not all of those behaviours are an easy sell. They're quite challenging, the behaviours that are going to really turn the dial on climate change. So that's why this is a game changer for me. The work that you've found, which is that there is a demand side from creators and a supply side from brands, and we know it would deliver a really significant, in fact, 5% of demand side carbon could be affected by our behaviours.
By the IPCC report, yeah.
Brilliant. So I'm going to thank Rebecca. I'm going to invite you back up here in a second, but I'm going to give you the chance to rest your legs for a moment, and also because we try not to have too many people up here on the stage because it's a little bit snug. So I'm going to ask Şükrü for you and Rebecca to sit down for a second, and thank you for sharing that. Final point.
Before I actually go and sit down for a moment, may I also invite as many of you to also join us and come back on this coalition idea, because we really look forward to co-create this solution of demand and supply, possibly with other brands, with other companies, with the Creator Council that we are hoping to set up. So,
don't worry, I'm going to have you back up on this stage, and we're going to repeat that, Şükrü, many times over, that we want the people out.
Essence of communication. Repeat the message.
Repeat the message. Yes, you can tell. You can tell it. You can tell he's good at the job. So, never about us without us. So this has been really, really, really interesting. And one of the things which Unilever really, really asked for was that we would make space for an amazing creator to talk about what it actually feels like for them in this situation. So there has been a creator who's been a friend of Solutions House for a long time, the wonderful Dr. Adanna Steinacker, founder of the House of Adanna, and actually would Jaya Adapa, the SVP for Media and Content of Futerra, come up and sort of dig into this. Do you agree?
Woohoo!
Yeah.
We have so many seats.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. As Sally said, my name is Jaya, and I joined Futerra this year. Was very lucky to be standing up a practice around media and content. Prior to that, just for context, I was at YouTube for several years, and I worked with a lot of content creators directly on not just sustainable lifestyle, but all social impact across many different countries. So I had the privilege of meeting Adanna, and just went crazy for her immediately, because she is a unique accidental activist, if you will. So I think that your journey has been really unique in the sense that you are not an environmentalist per se. Your content is very lifestyle oriented. It's about you, your family, your day-to-day. And I think I'd love to hear your journey and how you've come to this point that you're sitting here at Solutions House and talking to us about content creators.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Dr. Adanna Steinacker. The feeling is very mutual. Jaya and I worked together while she was at YouTube, and yeah, thank you. You got me into several of these important conversations, and I'm very grateful for that. So yes, you are right that my background is very unique in the sense that I am not typically an environmental scientist. My background is medicine. I trained as a doctor, specialized in plastics and reconstructive surgery, and then 5 years ago, I decided to make the transition to full-time entrepreneurship. And I really got into this space, I would say, last year properly. Last year was the year that I thought I will leverage my platform to talk more about sustainability in a way that does not make me feel like an imposter. And the reason that happened because I had the opportunity, thanks to Jaya while she was at YouTube, to attend Climate Week. And I attended Climate Week as a creator. And I think it was the first year, it was the year that the IPCC report referenced the value that influencers have when it comes to amplifying messages that are so important, considering that over 80% of the world's population are on one social media platform or another. And so when all the key organizations realized, oh, we need to bring creators into these rooms, I came in as a creator, and I connected very deeply. I remember one of the speakers being on stage. She had come from Pakistan, and she just talked about the flooding. She talked about schools being underwater, kids being displaced from their schools. And I broke down crying. I'm a mother of 3 children, and I just thought these could be my children. The only reason it's not is because they're in London and they're in the UK and not in Pakistan. And so I went back, and I was really, really broken, and I just kept asking myself, how can I do more? What can I do? And on the background of the importance of creators in this space, I felt like an imposter. That's the honest truth. I just felt like I'm a medical doctor. What do I know about climate change? I sat through med school, not one single reference to climate change sustainability. We were so tunnel visioned. If it didn't have anything to do with human health, we didn't learn it. And in that line, I remember then coming back to you, Jaya, saying, hey, I have an idea, right? I'm a big advocate for women's empowerment and gender equality, and I have used my platform to talk about that for a while. So I have an idea I want to launch a documentary series about women and sustainability, and I will take myself out of that equation, and I will be the vessel where I go to interview women who are experts in the field, and they can break down the scientific jargon into language that everyday people understand. And I will record that, and I will put it on my platform. And over time, I will build the awareness, because that's what it was for me, connecting on a personal level. So by speaking to so many women, I know that there will be one person watching feeling like, hey, I connect to this on a personal level. Let me try to start changing my behavior. And so thanks to you and your team for approving that idea. YouTube, you did fund me for a year yeah. And so that's how I accidentally got into this space, really.
Well, and I think that leads to my next question. So we just walked through a survey that was done of creators. I believe you took that survey as well.
Yes.
And I think one of the things, as Sally mentioned, how creators make money. How is this a sustainable life choice or job for creators? They are running businesses. They are in many cases have staff. They have very busy content calendars. Often it looks easy. And as someone who's been behind the camera quite a bit in my career, it's not easy. And but it's the magic of making it look easy. And so making, this community of the sustainability community understand content creation, its complexity, and the magic that truly you have. I always said if it was easy, we'd all have millions of followers, right? Yeah. So there is a reason why I do not. And so speaking for myself, but I think that the partnership with brands is a critical piece here, because yes, lots of creators make money off of advertising through the platforms, but that's in most cases not primarily how they make money. They make it through brand partnerships. So what have you seen, and how that has been a big, I think it's almost an internal struggle within the creator community, because there's a desire to talk about this, there's a desire to make, to get their audiences engaged, but audiences, they're attached and they love you, but the moment you go a little bit off in a different direction, they're like, no, yeah. Why are you talking about that? Mm-hmm. So how do you incorporate it in an authentic way? And then also, so one, I wanted to ask about the brands, and then I think if you could speak to your personal experience in the fears that you have in putting this type of content out there, the kind of reactions that you get from audiences, and what would help lower those barriers for you?
Yeah. So as far as the experience, right, like you were right in saying that a lot of the way we generate revenue as small businesses who have grown to hire teams is through brand partnerships. And, you know, I will speak for myself because I know that, you know, I stand as one, but I come as 1,000 because a lot of creators can relate to this, where, you know, 5 years ago, what I cared about wasn't whether the brand partnership was sustainable, ethical. I cared about, did it fit into the niche that I was in, right? I started off as a lifestyle creator. So I would work with partners who, you know, who wanted me to advertise educational, you know, materials for my kids, or beauty as a woman, or couples product for my husband. So it really was, as long as it wasn't out of place, it made it into my content because that was revenue. And then, you know, as I, you know, grew my consciousness about my lifestyle choices, I started to make the decision to turn down a lot of these brands. For two reasons. Number one, I am now aware that, okay, I should probably not work with this brand. Number two is the fear of, even for brands that I'm not quite sure, there is the fear of being cancelled. So, which is very easy these days. I mean, everyone gets cancelled. So slowly and surely, I'm declining all of these brands that I would never have batted an eye on, you know, to work with. But then I'm in this position where, well, I'm still running a business, is my livelihood. I have a team that I need to pay. So I suppose the thing that's the most difficult for me is going to all of these big conferences, and I have gone to all of them, UNGA, COP, Davos, TED. I've been to all of them, and they're all the brands that talk about sustainability. You know, it's fancy, it's sexy to talk about it in a room, and then we leave the room and there's no support. So I'm thinking, okay, what's the point of bringing us to all of these conversations, you know, when we're not getting that support? So really, the problem has been that I care, but I don't feel that some of the brands that really talk about it all the time care as much. So I found myself in the position of asking, why should I care then? Because now that I do really care about the topic, I'm a mom, I could go into my house and really educate my kids and choose to work with brands that probably don't promote any products, but I don't have to talk about sustainability as a topic. Because I think that's another thing that a lot of creators in this space will find, that these topics, right, when you produce content like that on your platform, they tend to perform the least.
Right.
Because there's not a lot of people talking about it, and we don't get the support. And so that's a huge barrier, you know, feeling like, okay, the support isn't there. And of course, that's why I'm grateful to brands like Unilever now, who are setting up the first of its kind creator coalition, where they have specifically said, we are co-creating this. We want to get your opinion. We want to do it right, systematically, in a way that can scale, rather than just one brand thinking of something. They don't want to monopolize it. It's like, who are the other brands that are talking about sustainability? Let's come together and create a coalition. And again, when we talk about the influence that creators have, the more we talk about these things, the sexier it becomes, right? So we need to amplify this conversation.
And I think, so we are going to move to the next piece, but I did want to land exactly what you said, but just to summarize it. We need more briefs. This is what it comes down to, because if there is not at least the offset of losses, if not profit, in making sustainability content, it's going to be unsustainable for creators to do. Of course, viewership is another issue as well across the platform. So it's something that I encourage all of you to think about and participate and bring your briefs to the table. And if you can't do that, like, follow, subscribe, do all the things that creators really appreciate. And you could follow me too, but
Stay exactly where you are, stay exactly where you are.
Okay.
But actually, Adanna, tell people how to follow you.
You can find me on House of Adanna on every platform, everywhere. I'm there. I'm like a virus on the internet.
You can find me in her followers.
You will find me liking every post, but far too shy to say anything. So I'm going to ask if Rebecca and Şükrü will come up as well. I'm going to stand to the side because otherwise someone's going to fall off this stage. So
Scoot him this way. Yes.
Yeah, if we just scoot along.
You know what? Yeah.
So
Okay, you good?
we just heard that kind of like
Very smart.
amazing story from Adanna about her journey from being a lifestyle, a mum, a doctor, influencer, to now really trying to find how to bring sustainability in, but not necessarily kind of having the support from brands that maybe she expected to happen when she started doing that. Like, how does this intersect with what you've been trying to do with this survey?
You want to go first?
Well, firstly, I'm feeling quite an underachiever. So.
Really?
I think I mentioned this at the beginning. So, in my world, which is largely corporate and not necessarily day-to-day involved with what to me is sort of the glamorous side of our work with the marketing and the advertising, it just seems to make common sense. So the way that we work at Unilever, we segment into what we call a multi-stakeholder model. So whenever we're thinking about big sustainability topics, in my mind, I'm thinking, what will investors think, and what will governments think, and what will NGOs think, and how do we work with civil society groups? And of course, the most important audience for us, of course, is our consumers, because what we're here to do is to make products through brands that make people's lives easier. Everyone needs to wash their clothes, clean their teeth, wash their hands, etc. And being able to take some of those really quite complicated sustainability messages and channel them through content creators like you to target, to mums, getting mums to get their kids to wash their hands 5 times a day or to clean their teeth twice a day is hugely powerful. And then I think, the other part of this, I was at a session this morning with some of a UN team on a new plastics treaty that is being developed at the moment. So lots of governments inputting to it, different civil society groups, and there's various things that we as manufacturers need to do. And a big part of this is innovation and getting out of using virgin plastic. But another big part of it is getting people to change their behaviour. So things like reuse models. So we all know, if you ask consumers and you say, would you be prepared to, refill this bottle or, get this jar refill? People say, oh yeah, no, definitely, I want to do that. But then the reality is, it's a bit of a faff. Like, I've got all these bottles and I take them to the supermarket, and how do I do it? And actually, it's a bit messy and et cetera, et cetera. Being able to work with content generators like you who really understand the demographic that you're working with, and I think being able to understand, based on and I think it's funny, isn't it, social media, because you have a very close bond and relationship. You don't necessarily know the influencer, but really to try and understand, how do we better craft the messages that we want with your input? How do you co-create that together so that it suits the target audience that we're trying to work with? To me, it obviously sounds like common sense when we all sit here and say it, but clearly it's just not something that we've all done before.
Yet.
And I think that's an opportunity to get it right this time, because traditionally we just get given briefs. There is no creative freedom. It's like you think about it from a corporate perspective, and you want to, some brands, not you, want to translate that literally into a corporate brief. I'm like, no, people are there because of relatability, not because of the science. So you need to give creative freedom. Yeah. And so, being at this point where you're creating this coalition and very early on bringing parties that are involved in amplifying this creatively in a way that's relatable is very, very powerful, because then we have the insight and can shape that together.
And that's the beauty of social media. If you think to when most of us in this room, not casting aspersions, grew up, it was quite a one-way medium. You watched television and you absorbed, or didn't, the messages that were coming through the advertising. The beauty with social media is it's much more tailored into the particular demographic. But you're absolutely right. It's this co-creation opportunity is so special.
Yeah,
brilliant. Okay.
Maybe
please,
one thing to add to that one. The last couple of years in Unilever, we have been exploring the intersection of marketing, technology, and sustainability. Because at the end, our lives these days are very much governed by those small screens that we know for anything and everything. And actually, what can we do differently versus, say, 10 years ago? when Unilever was on the journey of USLP, Sustainable Living Plan, this time around to really bring a systemic solution to all this goodwill and the opportunity that sometimes happens in an ad hoc way. So what is the digital and social media, technology plus marketing, and can we triangulate this power and bring it to the service of sustainable living?
Brilliant.
That's actually what this whole idea is about in a way.
A nexus. Okay, so I've got a spare chair. So I'm going to offer this spare chair to Eric Levine. No, unfortunately, not to Adanna. Actually, Adanna would like you to lift her up. There we go. Here we go.
Here we go.
She's quite a big girl. She'll come up. There we go.
Can you point out to the camera then?
Yeah. So this is the point where everybody who is on their phones are now like, oh, Taggart is here. Eric, you're co-founder of Countersin. Countersin is an incredible organisation around behaviour change and around coalitions. So we've heard a lot here. Unilever's talked about coalitions. Adanna, Jaya has all talked about coalitions. Like, this is a big bite if we're gonna engage creators around the world on sustainable lifestyles. How would you recommend we go about it?
Well, first off, I'm as excited about this as a game changer as you are, and I don't want to kind of reiterate everything that's been said. I guess I was sitting here with that feeling of some of us have been like cooking in the kitchen for a while, and this is that first, like, we put some food on the table, and this is that moment of inviting other people to join you and to bring other dishes. And I think, because we knew before today, IPCC, we need a world where we're fundamentally at a mass scale changing our action. We knew that creators from early research, creators are potent. The research today and that you brought to life, Dr. Adanna, is like, we want to do it, we need support, so like all those pieces come together. And we've set up this big tent. So I think Unilever, not to make you guys blush on stage, but I think there's some enlightened, what we call radical collaboration principles. You could have invested some money and done something and said, we're going to take this and keep it to ourselves. And instead it was, this won't work if it's just us. You had that insight at the beginning. It's a big tent. We've got Futerra and all of the magic that you guys bring, and Rare and behavioral science and Countersin, the mobilization work that we do. There are all these other partners, UNDP. So it was like this start a coalition, but we can't do it on our own. And I think this is that real moment of truth where we're kind of throwing up at the tent. It's like, if you're a creator who wants to do more of this, or an agency that represents creators, who know, as you said, your audience and what is the way to weave that together and invite them to consider something new. Or if you're, all the major social media platforms who have, already started to engage with us, like who can help amplify this. If you're the nonprofit or the content, you have content that can help creators feel confident, about that. There are just so many pieces of this puzzle that we need. And I think this is that moment and that big tent where we are saying, in fact, I'm going to use my youth organizational background and make us move our hands for a sec. Anybody who is part of any of the organizations who have been part of this coalition that we've announced, can you raise your hand in the room? Yeah? So when this finishes, because Climate Week is really about like, what are you doing on Monday morning after Climate Week? Everybody keep your hands back up. So look to the person next to you, and if you're any of the people I just described, or you have an idea that we haven't thought of that you can say is key to us bringing this to life at scale, go talk to one of those people and at least say, remember me, this is what I can do to contribute to this, and I'm going to ping you and we're going to pick things up on Monday morning, because this is that moment where we can't, as superpowery as all of the organizations who are involved so far, we can't do it on our own. And we need to get to, we talk sometimes about this vision of, imagine tens of thousands, 50,000 creators, 1 billion people who are taking different choices because people in their lives have invited them to do so, amplified on platforms and brands working with them, and people growing their business. We talk about that future. We need to get there. And the last thing I'm going to say, that I stole from a friend who said this earlier, he said, and he helped deliver the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in South Africa and knows a bit about changing behavior. Paul will know who I'm talking about. Never make people choose between what's ethical and what's desirable, because most people always choose desirable. And so what this is about, it's about making what's ethical desirable, and about banking in the people who know how to engage people and do that.
Brilliant. Spot on.
Yes.
So, Şükrü, you'll be very happy. There's another repetition of please come and talk to us. I'm actually going to pick on a couple of people who I spot in the audience. Not in a, hey, do you want to come and play? But in a, what's going on for you right now? So I'm going to come to Jay. So Jay, MasterCard. MasterCard is one of the most recognizable brands that there are out there. And we know you've got big commitments about sustainable lifestyles. Are you already working with creators? How are you responding to this conversation?
Yeah, thanks for that. Thanks for everybody out there. I thought this was fantastic.
Hello. Yeah, so one, just thank you for this fantastic conversation. Yeah, in terms of how we are leveraging creators, I think there's 3 big opportunities that we see at MasterCard. First, there's 1.5 billion views of the hashtag priceless just on TikTok alone. And we need to find a way to have creators authentically show up with these conversations and drive these conversations, steer these conversations in the right way, whether that is around sustainability or otherwise. 2, we have priceless experiences, and we want to bring these priceless experiences to the next generation of cardholders. And we need creators who can connect with these avid communities, whether that's in travel or culinary, sports, gaming, et cetera. And last, we really believe that creators can connect with and give a voice to underrepresented communities. We have a few products like Touch Card, so being able to connect with sight impaired or the LGBT community, or what we're talking about today, kind of this next sustainability generation.
Jake, and I thank you so much for bringing that up, because when we're often talking about sustainable lifestyles, we're talking about the impact on over-consumers, those of us who actually need to manage our consumption. But what we forget is that actually much of a sustainable lifestyle is really, really good for you. It's better for your health. Oh, we're giving a little bit less. There's a bit of kind of climate change going on the panel here. So thank you so much, Karen, for doing that. So hopefully everybody won't pass out. So we talk a lot about over-consumers. And we need to acknowledge that so much of a sustainable lifestyle can help you save money. And that is such an important part of it in terms of that desirability versus morality.
And if I could just add one thing too, that when you're thinking about creators are not a monolith. They're all independent, right, running these different businesses. So you have, when you want to achieve a certain amount of scale, you have to think about the type of creators that you want. There are lots of wonderful creators that do eco-friendly, eco-tubers, eco-talkers, or there's lots of wonderful communities that have been built in this space. The challenge is most of the people that are watching those pieces of content are already convinced. So one of the things that was really important here is because someone like Adanna is not someone immediately that you're going to think is going to start talking about sustainability, as she weaves it into her content, it's normalizing a conversation that is otherwise not going to reach the people that need to hear it. And we have lots of other great creators here in the audience that have that similar power to do so. And I think that's not to just think about the people who are talking about it already, but who might be able to reach someone who is thinking about something else.
Love it.
Great point.
Okay, thank you. I also spot Mark back there, who's the director at Earth Alliance. So Earth Alliance are great friends of Futerra and of everybody else who's on this panel. And Earth Alliance is another organisation who's right there doing some quite literally delicious work on engaging creators. So again, is this what you're hearing as well in terms of the need that there is out there?
Sure, and this is a fantastic panel, and I'm happy to see so many people joining this conversation with such a level of innovation. So we're an organization that was created with the sole purpose of building a cultural power effort around climate action. And it's something that kind of recognizes that you have to understand that for the most part, if you're hearing climate information, you're hearing it in the news.
Yeah.
And if you're not watching news, you're not getting any climate information, right? And based on that, you have to then understand that this is what culture looks like. It looks like people engaging in communion with those that they follow, with those that they feel represent the ways in which they want to participate in society. And so for us, knowing that, we've been engaging directly with content creators, directly with digital creators, and recognizing that the job for us is to de-risk their work to be able to do this. We've created a product specifically for creators. It's called Delicious Nuggets because it is they're tiny morsels of information in which we provide inspo for creators to be able to not only create authentically with their audiences, but to do that in a way that doesn't have them running the risk of feeling like they are lying, feeling like they are engaging in this space inauthentically. And so we think that this is a space that is not only ripe for innovation, but it's one that needs investment. It needs people to not only create those briefs, but to be able to create as much playing room, as much running space, and as much funding to be able to allow creators to authentically move into this space in a way that allows them to grow their audiences. But more importantly, for someone like me that spent his career in policy and politics, it is a necessary piece of the puzzle because we cannot do this the way in which we've been doing it up to this point.
We have got to smash out of that bubble, baby. Yeah. Thank you so much, Mark. That's awesome. And as you can probably tell, this is a conversation and coalition that is beginning to invite a few people to be part of the conversation. And just like we've talked a lot about the fact that there's this conversation coalition, there's not a big deck around it with what have you. This is genuinely a conversation that's being opened. And I'm going to come to the audience for questions in a moment, but we've had a really important question for Adanna. And I'm sorry that Taggart was so distracting. And everyone pulled their phones up, and I thought there was something important that came on the screen.
She can tell him, Mama.
And it's Taggart that came up. She's literally taken my chair. So,
One more follower.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, Adanna, I want to come to you with this question because it's one that gets raised a lot when we're having all of these conversations. So, Melda Simon, who's joining us online, has asked, why are audiences not responding already to sustainability content? Why is it difficult to, so far, before you've got this great help that's coming, why has it been difficult to talk about this?
I mean, because it's the conversation has always been about doom and gloom. Psychologically, like you're less likely you will switch off when it's all about the negative, and you're more likely to influence behavior when it's more positively driven. And that's the switch that we're realizing now, right? I mean, even I can see the shift even from last year when influencers were first mentioned in the reports. It was all, climate change, sustainability. Those were the two words that everybody thought needed to be mentioned when you then talked about it. And now we're realizing that you can have that conversation without ever mentioning those words. And so, yes, simply speaking, the reason why it's not been talked about is because it's always, first of all, it's so scientifically driven, and it's all jargon, like net zero, carbon, God knows what, 30, God knows what.
Yeah.
Like things that I literally, as an educated person, never heard in my line of work or profession. And they sound so far out of my what I even bother to learn. And now that we're making that conversation more relatable, my ears are open. And it's really about storytelling, isn't it? It's about creatively telling the story. And it's about connecting to the personal. Because did I hear about the doom and gloom? Yeah. Did I switch off? Yes, I did. When did I connect to it? When a woman stood there and told me that kids were displaced from their schools because the flooding swallowed up school buildings in Pakistan. That's when I was like, I need to freaking do something.
Yeah.
You know? So it's about the relatability, and this is where we need the bridge, right? The people who do the science, because we're not those. Those are brilliant people. They're the influencers, like you said. Do the research. That we're so grateful that the science is there. Then they're the people who can take that and break it down and make it sound sexy. Then they need the support from brands to actually influence behavior at scale. It's really a collaboration.
I don't know, you just set it out. That's actually absolutely spot on. I know there's a lot more to say on the panel, but I really want to make sure that we get some questions from the audience as well. So, as always, sir, you have the choice of who you go to when they put their hands up. So just smile and he'll come to you. If you feel able, please say who you are and where you're from.
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Leah. I'm from Make Sense. So basically, I actually run a fellowship program for content creators to mainstream the climate mitigation conversation in Philippines, Thailand, and Indonesia. And basically, the program is run in 3 phases. And the first phase is really to identify what are the stories and the subjects that are relatable to our the different audiences that we support. And I'm sorry, I don't remember your name, but
Jaya.
yeah, Jay, or maybe everybody, because from what I hear, you're supporting different content creators, and I'd be interested to hear also if there are specific trends or topics that you see that are more relatable, or at least if there are specific things that you were able to really create this motivation or this drive for people to engage in this conversation.
Great question. Thank you so very much. Blame the dog. It's fine. All
right.
That's okay, the dog. So, Jay, is there things which, particularly in your role in Futerra and previously in YouTube, that you've seen are more relatable? And then, again, perhaps Eric and Unilever would like to jump in as well.
Yeah.
So let's...
So I think it's about common ground. So one of the issues that we've seen is climate change. A lot of people don't really see it, how it affects. We can all see a polar bear on a melting ice cap, and you're like, I feel sad about that, but it's not relatable. One of my favorite creators is here in the audience, Mark Vins, who runs Brave Wilderness channel, and his content is a really great example of this because it's about being out in nature. It's about who doesn't like being outside, who doesn't like animals, who doesn't like this connection to nature. I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, I don't think you've ever used climate change specifically.
No. Do not eat the batteries.
Oh, she's eating the batteries. Oh, no. Never mind. As I was saying, don't eat the batteries. But I think that's the key is finding something, we need to see this as something that affects us day to day without feeling doom about it. And so content around nature, conservation, animals do quite well in social media, by the way. That's not a secret, right? So, if you want to watch, a tarantula bite, Mark, there's an absolute video for you, but there's a conservation message in it, right? And it's not going to beat you over the head with it. And I think it's a question of participation, not perfection. And I think I'll target everyone in this room to say we as a community, meaning the sustainability community, can be a little judgy about content, what's good and what's not. A little. So that is another piece of this as well, to make sure that that creators can make content and we can say that's good content, even if it wasn't said perfectly with the exact right data figures.
From a brand perspective, what works?
I think on the content point, what Adana said was super important in my view. In fact, changing the narrative from doom and gloom to a positive psychology, and how do you make the people change with that positive psychology is the most important part. Because if you recall, the whole sustainability narrative, starting from perhaps the inconvenient truth of Al Gore, and very truthfully, almost like a horror movie. I mean, the horrifying statistics, the planet is going down, our kids will suffer, and how we change people from being in the psychology of being part of a problem to a part of a solution in a positive way, and with content that matters. I think that's for me the one and only thing. Maybe as a personal example, last weekend I was alone at home and watching US Open at one stage. And then I watched The Game Changer, that movie. In fact, do I not know about the benefits of plant-based eating, healthy, better for the planet? But of course I know it. But having seen that movie, that content or that material hits you. And now it's been about 11 days I'm on a plant-based experiment with myself.
Woohoo! Go, Şükrü! Yeah, brilliant. So the power of positive. I'm just going to take one more question, and then I'm going to come back to the panel because we just want to hear from a few more folks. Yeah. I'm going to take two. So if you could ask your question and then another, and then I'll come to the panel to close us out.
I will be fast. I would just love to understand how you measure success here. It's got to be beyond views, right? You're looking to change behavior, but how do you measure that change of behavior?
Great.
Especially when it's not always actionable. It might be that you're planting a seed of climate in a consumer, but that's not going to lead to them doing anything.
brilliant.
And I'm going to rest my case because that was my exact question. So
okay,
thank
great.
You
So do you want to take one more quick question? So we've got a question about the lady in the front. It's really like she's eye contacting me. She wants
Super exciting. Can't wait to talk to all of you. We're in the same field. What I get pushback on is why should individuals take action when it's governments and corporations that are really the problem?
Right.
How do you respond to that?
Okay. So I'm going to ask you folks to take a think about that measurement point and final comments. I'm actually going to take that one because it's absolutely set out in the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change in AR6 that came out last year, Working Group 3, that we must have both. That asking people to change behaviour when there is infrastructure is not there and the policy is not there isn't just not going to work, it's deeply unfair. And it is not a responsibility that must be taken. At the same time, all of us do have a role that we can take. We are not completely victims within this situation. We are not powerless. The IPCC has also set out these 60 behaviours which carry a significant carbon. And they carry significant carbon when you make the change. They also send a very, very strong signal. And I think Game Changers is the perfect example of that. Let's be honest, not a lot of the food companies expected plant-based eating. Veganism had been around for a long time. It was very important. Some people were really on it. But none of the companies were producing big, public, on-the-shelves plant-based meals. That change was driven by consumers. And the companies then stepped up to respond to it. So it is utterly unfair to ask people to take action when the infrastructure and the policy is not happening. At the same time, we are not just a bunch of victims with no power ourselves to take action. We can calculably make a difference as well. So not if, both. All right, final comment from everybody in the panel. Perhaps a word on measurement might be given or a word of advice to creators. I know Şükrü's going to do an invitation. So very, very, very quickly, and Rebecca, I'm going to come to you last for the closing thought. So Jaya.
So on the measurement question, actually, it is hard, but it's not as hard as it sounds. Creator marketing and the amount of marketing spent towards creators has never been higher. And the reason for that is there's a strong return on investment that is measurable. So some, again, they're not a monolith. Some creators are more influential than others. And some creators, they might post a piece of content that 80% of the audience actually does the call to action. Of course, behavior change is a little different than buying something or converting into something else. But you can extrapolate some very strong potential behavior shifts from videos. Also, watching those videos. You want to measure the behavior change that comes of it, but if 20 million people watch something, I promise you, there is that call to action is coming. So my only final thought is just, I see myself very much as a creator advocate. I've been working with creators for many years, and I think a lot of it's finally getting the respect that we're getting to a place where they're in the conversation and being thought of as who they are, which is really talented people that deserve a lot of credit for what they do. It's not easy, and support them all the ways that we've talked about.
We can.
Thank you.
I'm going to work my way inwards. So Eric, I'm going to come to you, and then I'm going to come towards
I guess the last thing I would say is this doesn't work as one global enterprise or one creator to a community or one person taking an action. It only works if everybody gets involved in this. And I wanted to thank the first person, I don't know your name, for role modeling exactly what we're asking for, which is I am practically involved in this. I have people in a network and content resources, and I want to contribute those to this collective effort because this is an uncharacteristically big and open tent. Please come forward.
100%. Şükrü.
2 points. First on measurement. Being a 25 years Unilever person, KPI-driven business person, in fact, of course, we need to define real output KPIs for this coalition to achieve. And I believe personally they should be more impact-oriented KPIs more than traditional media. But I think, having said this as my point of view, it's of course for the Creator Council and for the coalition to define. So therefore, once again, to reiterate the message that the whole movement is all about co-creating it together. And I would like to end on saying, please join us. And because this is the time to move from talking to acting.
Very nice. You can tell he works in marketing. Okay.
5 years. I should have learned something by now.
Adanna, you're part of this new Creator Council. What would you say to this audience?
No, I just want to say that I am excited about the future. You know, just to echo what Jaya said, that you've worked with creators for so long, and it seems like finally we're getting the the acknowledgement or the recognition for the work that we're doing, specifically when it comes to the space of sustainability. I'm excited about the future. I'm excited about brands like Unilever who are, putting their money where their mouth is, or other brands who are committing to join the coalition. I think the future is sustainable, and I'm excited about that.
Yes, the future is sustainable. Woo! Rebecca.
So I guess to close, I think the Climate Week this year has been all about, everyone set their targets and now take action. And I think this really encapsulates that perfectly. In answer to your question, if you think about something like recycling, you need manufacturers to us to make things that are technically recyclable. You need governments to have a recycling infrastructure in place so that actually when you put the trash into the bin, it doesn't go into the waste system, but it gets circulated back around. Then you need consumers to say, okay, well, I'm going to play my part in doing that. I'm going to put it into the recycling bin. And I think actually, how do you do that? Is through the power of co-creating the kind of content that directly addresses 2 points. A, is there a solution? And B, what can I do about it? And I think that's why this is so special. The other thing I want to say is thank you to everybody for coming. Thank you, Futerra, Solutions House, Exponential Roadmap, and Google for putting all of this together. And again, this is a coalition. It's very much about collaborative action. And thank you, Solly, for being a brilliant host.
Thank you very much. Yeah. I am 3 minutes over, so not that a brilliant host. So how are we going to handle this? Because every single person up here is going to want, I want in. So we have all your email addresses because you all registered to be part of this event, including those of you who are online. So rather than us trying to create some long line with everybody handing over, we will contact all of you following this event, inviting you to be part of this and telling you how to be so. All of you who registered, all of those who are on the short list and the wait list and were queuing downstairs and didn't get in, everybody who is online, don't worry, you will have the opportunity to have this conversation, not least because we actually have another event coming up called Meet the Creators. Back here is a YouTube studio, which we've been running all this week here at Climate Week. And we're going to be gathering together the YouTube creators in about half an hour. And that is very oversubscribed. So I'm afraid if you didn't register for that session, please, in the spirit of sustainability, respect the resources, respect the equity, and allow the people who are queuing downstairs to come on up. Thank you so very much, everyone. Thank you so very much.